will get this meeting rolling. We are going to see if Commissioner Gershman will pop in here in a minute, but we will get moving anyway. So we do a quick roll call.
Pinker.
Yep.
Meek.
Yep.
Schutz.
Yes.
Gershman. Hanson.
Yes. Okay, thanks, Lori. Public comment. Anybody like to raise anything to the commission, speak? I'm gonna take that as a no, so we'll move on. Introduction of Fire Department Career Track 2, recruit firefighter paramedic Charlotte Schiffrel.
All right, good morning. I'd like to actually start off with Charlotte. Charlotte Schiffrel started with the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department on June 2nd, 2025 as Career Track 2 recruit. Charlotte completed her paramedic internship with the department on Redshift as a mid-state technical college student from January to April 2025. She expressed a strong desire to join the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department and performed exceptionally well throughout the internship, proving to be a great fit for our team. Charlotte attended Mid-State Technical College for a paramedic certification course and recently passed the National Registry exam for paramedic. She also obtained her state of Wisconsin Fire 1 certification with Mid-State Technical College in December 2024. She is currently working on her candidate physical ability test, and when she has obtained a valid CPAT, she will move to the firefighter recruit Career Track 1 assigned to Redshift. She's also working at the Marshfield Medical Center emergency room as an ER tech, where she is gaining patient care experience in a wide variety of medical situations, which will greatly enhance her knowledge here at the department, working in the EMS field. She is accompanied by her grandfather, Mark, her father, Robert, her mom, Jessica, who is also our esteemed city clerk, and sister Eva, Aunt Crystal, and cousin Colton. Please help me in welcoming Charlotte to the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department. Congratulations.
I just want to
Can't miss these guys.
And the best for last. Very modest. All daughter now.
Congratulations, Charlotte. And I like the peer support. Thanks, guys, for being here this morning.
We do have one other recruit. Unfortunately, Joseph Downs couldn't be here today. He's actually attending a Fire 1 class. Joseph Downs started with the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department. I'd just like to take a little time and introduce him too. Joseph Downs started with the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department on June 2nd, 2025 as a Career Track 2 recruit. He completed his paramedic internship with the department on Green Shift as a mid-state technical college student from January to April 2025. He expressed a strong interest in joining the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department and demonstrated exceptionally well during that internship. His skill and work ethic made him an excellent fit for our team, and we're happy to have him on board. Joseph attended Mid-State Technical College for his paramedic certification course and recently passed the National Registry exam for paramedic at the same time as Charlotte did. He is currently enrolled in the state of Wisconsin Fire 1 certification course being held at the North Central Technical College in Wausau with a completion date of July 17, 2025. He is also actively working on his candidate physical ability test here at the department. When he has obtained both Fire 1 certification and a valid CPAT, he will move to the Firefighter Recruit Career Track 1 assigned to the Green Shift. He has been with the Pittsville Fire Company for the past 2 years. The vast majority of his experience has been obtaining his EMT and paramedic certification with the state of Wisconsin. He does hold the Wisconsin DNR Intro to Wildland Firefighting and Ice Rescue certification. Unfortunately, like I said before, he's unable to attend today because he's at the MTC class, but I really wanted to make sure that you understood who he was. When we get a chance to get him here, we'll bring him in. And then my goal is once they're past this part, we'll actually do the badge fitting. And I'll allow them to see that in front of you because they'll be a sworn firefighter at that point. So right now they're not in a sworn status. As they move forward, we will get them into a sworn status. So that's it. If you have any questions on either one of the candidates, I can certainly answer those.
Thanks, Everett. Okay, moving on. Staff updates, firefighters local 1021 contract.
For the firefighter local 1021 contract, we just settled the 2024 contract. We negotiated that. Some of the key elements in that were step 4 after 7 years with a $1,000 bump to base pay over firefighter 3. That allows them to have a little bit more growth within the department. We felt it was the right thing to do in that, and both parties agreed upon that piece. We also saw a bump to the lieutenant base pay. That'll be effective January 1st, 2025. We also saw an engineer $1,000 bump to the base pay effective January 1st, 2025. And then for both 2024 and 2025, there was a 3% increase for living allowance, the COLA. And then uniform and equipment stipend, that went up to $650. What we've seen a lot of times is a lot of the equipment, the things that they're purchasing right now, the cost has certainly increased. When we look at a pair of pants for one of the types of pants we have, sometimes we have $200 for a pair of pants. So we feel like this is a good fit for the department. It's something that's going to be aligned with what we need to do for the future. And then again, they also have one additional week of vacation after 25 years that would be utilized, but they can't get paid out for. So that was pretty much it in a nutshell. I really can't give any update other than that. I've got a couple other updates too I'd like to go through.
Sure.
Work group for the FD Fitness. The group has had its first meeting on May 20th. The next step is to meet with Tracy Toffner for a high-level presentation. Basically, it's going to be about an hour-long presentation that we'll be going through. And then that meeting, I think, is going to be June 19th here at the fire department. So I know Steve is part of that, and also Randy, Commissioner Gershman, and Commissioner Meeks are part of that as well. For the TIMS, we're still working. I gotta get a hold of Chief Gurink, and we've got to sit down and look at that. Unfortunately, it's been kind of a busy schedule. As soon as we can get that information, we'll present that back here at the nearest part. And then the last one, Training Center Master Plan. We're in the current plans of the high-level stuff. We'll be hopefully getting a meeting here soon to get that kicked off with several different groups to get that going. So that's kind of where the status of that whole plan is. But those are the updates I had for today.
Let me get a word in edgewise here. Just had a couple updates. We have our first PEACE event coming up. PEACE is Police Education and Community Engagement. So the program that was started by Derek Iverson. That'll be launched on Friday, June 20th. We're going to have a Cast with Cops, it's called, be a fishing event. We've got 30 kids signed up for it up at Hummus Park, and we're going to chase after the fish that's in there and see if we can catch it. So we'll be doing that on Friday, June 20th. And then also yesterday, we had our kickoff meeting with DKV Group for the building. So we're pretty excited. We've got a slew of meetings coming up here in the next few weeks, so we're going to be pretty busy with that. So that process has been. I'm excited to see how it turns out, because they've kind of laid out a little bit of what they'll do, and it sounds like there'll be a lot of updates and a lot of meetings coming up here. So we're going to be pretty active with that. So those are the two things that we got going on at PD.
I have one staff update. I want to congratulate Everett Mueller, 21 years.
Lois, point of order. You've been warned about this before.
I'm not a staff member.
You're not part of this body, and you are not to speak out from that chair. Jessica's warned you. You've been warned twice before by members of the committee.
Thank you for the updates. Moving on. Approval of minutes of the May 15th, 2025 regular meeting. Get a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second. Thank you. Consideration of changing the date of the October Fire and Police meeting from October 16th to October 9th.
I can present that.
Yeah.
Just basically, we have a conference that we typically attend that time of year. It's actually the Wisconsin Fire Chiefs Education Association Conference. There's a lot of legal updates in there. And additionally, they're allowing some of our staff members, as far as like Lori for the office coordinator position, they can attend the first day. And we felt like this would be a good fit for that. But again, it would be at your discretion. If you feel that the meeting needs to remain where it's at, we can certainly leave it there and we can make accommodations for that. I wanted to just bring that ahead of time and just see if there was some consideration for that.
Sure. I don't know what the process is for that. If we just agree with it, or
We have to make a motion, I believe.
I'd make a motion or second it, either or. If you're making a motion.
You make the motion.
Okay. Motion to approve to change it to that.
Okay.
I'll give it the second.
Okay.
I'd just say that relative to my calendar, October 9th would be a question at this point, but it's probably 90% chance that I will be here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, should we vote on that? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Approval of police department bills.
Thank you, and good morning. We've got two sets of bills in your packet. One was signed May 28th by Commissioner Meek, and the other yesterday by Commissioner Hanson. I did review the bills again, and I didn't see anything that stuck out to me, but I'd be happy to answer any questions before we approve.
Got a question on 8C, 8E. We've got two sets of damage repairs.
We've had a few things that's happened with our vehicles, so I don't know which one this one was. We had a rear hatch that was replaced, and we had a door that was replaced. That's minor. Both are insurance claims.
Okay, because I know this one was almost 3,000.
Yep. I believe that, I'd have to review that bill to be sure, and I can do that for you. But I believe that was a hatch, so I can find that for you.
And the other item is an Uber bill for the hotel station design.
Yep.
I'm not concerned about the bill, I want to know how the conference went.
The conference was really neat. We picked up a lot of ideas and a lot of things that we weren't thinking of. One of the best parts about it was the EKV group did a presentation on a station that they recently designed over in Minnesota. And the department is similar to ours in size. And so we were really interested in that. They did a case study on it, presentation. It was awesome. So we're hoping to maybe set up a tour at that police department.
Where is that?
Rosemount,
Okay.
Minnesota. So we're gonna try to set up a tour over there if we can make it happen with our command staff and just kind of get some ideas. So it was worth the trip and my first Uber ride. So that was not awesome.
It's a fancy cab, right?
It was not awesome.
Any other comment? Get a motion to approve the police bills?
Motion to approve.
Any seconds on that?
And we'll do the roll call.
Baker,
Yes.
Meek,
Yes.
Schutz.
Yeah.
Frischman, yes.
Yes. Approval of fire department bills.
Thank you. There were two sets of bills this month. The first set was signed by Commissioner Gershman on May 28th, and the second set was signed by Commissioner Schutz on June 12th, or June 11th. When I looked through all the bills, I felt like everything was fairly straightforward, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I've got two questions. On 9C, Frontier Telephone.
Sure.
Emergency management storm siren phone service.
Okay.
What is that?
Do you want to answer that question, or do you, okay? When it comes to the phone service, there's actually a call out to those, each one of the sirens. That's how they actually interact with Wood County Dispatch. So there's a service fee on that. I believe that would have been in the police department bills. You would have seen that in the past, and now it would be on our bills as far as the telephone.
Okay, so when the sirens are activated from Rapids,
Correct.
that goes to a telephone line?
Well, not necessarily a telephone line. They also do high Wi-Fi, or not Wi-Fi, but cable internet.
VHF?
Yeah, kind of like an internet type
Okay.
signal, but that part is paid through that, and we can look into that further and get more presentation on that.
Okay, so that's routed into the system.
Correct.
Ever did that come through the emergency management bill? I don't remember that. TV, we can talk offline about that one and see.
Yeah.
Because that one, it doesn't ring a bell with me. So,
Nicely done.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll follow up with Chief Durant and we'll kind of compare and see what the past has been and see if that's a new charge or we'll track that charge down. I know the telecommunication bill, how those usually come across, is all the departments are on that bill.
Right.
And then they basically switch those out. Each time it's a little difficult to understand those and sometimes we're a month behind and maybe a month forward, so we'll look through those though. We'll see if we can come up with on that.
It's a separate bill.
Okay.
I might be wrong, I don't think I've ever seen it on any of the billing. Has it been on there, Lauren?
I can't recall it.
I just say, I don't recall seeing it.
look, we can check with Cindy and maybe even, I think Lori might be aware of it. We can check with them and reach back to you just to make sure it doesn't, I don't remember that one. But.
Then on page 9D, from Municipal Electric Utilities of Wisconsin, that's not Marshfield Utilities.
No, it's not.
Okay, then, we have free access fees for online MSDSs.
Correct.
What is this for?
So this is a program that we recently went to, and what it is for MSDS sheets for in the department. So instead of having just a book in the department, now there'll be MSDS online. Now it's almost like if you were to think of Lexipol, how we do all of our policies and procedures. Basically, those are updated, and if there's any new information that comes out for a chemical that we have within the fire station, it literally will go ahead and update that information on there. So we're not having to go back to a document and put that back in there. This is actually stemmed between other departments within the city. So Streets Department is part of this, Parks and Rec Department is part of it, and we are also part of it. Why you see 3 charges is that's actually broken between the 3 budgets. That's in the ambulance budget, fire protection budget, and also fire prevention budget. So it comes out to a total of $231.25, which was our share, and that's budgeted for each year. We have for that budget.
So you are eliminating paper copies.
For the most part, I believe, we're still working on exactly what that program is going to look like. This is one that's new to us this year, and I can have Deputy Chief Altman possibly come in and do a presentation on that, or give a little more information at another meeting if you'd like. He's the one who's our safety coordinator and basically facilitating that.
Yeah, I'd like to know for sure that the electronic version is allowed to replace the paper altogether, because I know in my field, you can have the electronic version and it's easier to get the update quicker, but you still have to have the paper one on premise.
I believe that's the program, but like I said, it's new to us, so we're trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen with it. I'll look into it and I can present it the next one under, do you want it under a staff update or would you like it?
Staff update.
Okay.
I agree with Chris. You had to work with MSDSs.
If the computer system goes down, you got redundancy.
You need the paper
You
copy.
bet.
There's been some online chatter recently from some safety talk sites about the same issue.
Okay.
And we got to be very careful. I had a former colleague that was in charge of environmental compliance at an American facility of a European company. And his concern was the amount of material that was being accumulated on electronic means, and at some point in the future, they were subpoenaed. There may be no way of getting that material back because it was done on earlier computer systems. Nobody can have the computers anymore. As an example, his firm, if you're old enough to remember the TRS-80 from Radio Shack, they had data that was logged in on TRS-80, the early Commodore, Apple I, Apple II, and then later to IBM systems. Where do you find it?
Not big floppy. But you're not gonna find a device that will play that big floppy.
The last laboratory remediation I did, chemical health and safety remediation, yeah, their MSDSs were on floppies. There was no way to reclaim. They had no paper copies.
I'll definitely look into this and I'll get back to you with stuff.
If you're able to save it on in a digital format, you can probably also forward that into a PDF printable file. Maybe it'll save time.
I think the way I believe this program is going to work is basically that becomes that online database that we print off and we basically keep the hard copies updated. But again, I'll check into that. And then what that does is make sure that that new information, and it also triggers that and sends a message to our facilitator here at the department, basically send them an email saying there's an update done, and then they would print that document off. Then we would have the hard copy, probably also have it saved in a database. Like you said, PDF. But again, I'll look into that and I'll give you a better update on that in the future.
Will there be any objection from the other commissioners if we remove this item and consider it at the next meeting after we have an update?
I do not object to that, as long as procedurally it's done correctly.
Object, just more information, I guess. It's fine.
Point of clarification, I believe the bill was already paid because it was paid through a package deal for the city of Marshfield. And this is kind of directed by HR as well, but I'm just asking for a point of clarification. Do you want us to remove that bill then? How do you want that done?
I'm concerned that it's already been paid.
Yeah, I mean, it probably should have been brought to our attention before it was purchased.
This is a significant safety item.
I do apologize. I guess that was my oversight, so I didn't realize that was. I'll look into it. If you'd like it removed, we can try to figure out how to do that. Or if you can remove this.
This is something we've been paying for in the past, correct, Everett?
Unfortunately, it was the last 3
And we
years.
didn't even,
We didn't have access to it, so we finally have access to it now, but apparently it's been in the bills for the last 3 years.
it's been a big mess.
And those were parts that were outside of my control. I wasn't necessarily in this position at that time. So this is a program the city went to, not necessarily just the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department. I don't know that the police department is on board with that, but I know other departments are on board with that. So wastewater utilizes it, the rec utilizes it.
Considering this has got OSHA implications, that's rather serious. Anyway, I will move to, since this thing has been paid, I'll move for approval of the bills.
Any second?
I'll second it. Can we add a caveat to that, is that we get what we've been discussing, just to verify that we can make a copy of it, either digitally, but preferably both digital and paper.
Yeah, for sure.
I think from what I've heard today with the discussion, I think this would be better served as a line item so that there can be discussion on it afterwards. If it comes under a staff update, then it would be me presenting it to you, but no input from the commission under staff update. So we'll have, would that be all right to put it under a line item?
Yeah, we can work that out.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Baker,
No,
Beek,
Yes.
Schutz,
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes. So, okay, that's it.
And just one last follow-up, I apologize, that would be an oversight of the lines, so they need to come in front, and I will.
Well, I mean, it sounds like it's kind of an oversight on everybody's part.
Unfortunately, it's something that kind of spans multiple chiefs, so.
So, but we'll figure it out.
Okay.
You know, I mean, at least we caught it, you know? Let's figure it out, move on.
Okay, sounds great, thank you.
Police Department activities, training reports, and correspondence packet.
Thank you. We've got a pretty busy training month. It's getting close to the end of our training year. June 30th is the end of our training year, so There's some folks that like to hammer in their hours right at the end here, but we've had some community engagements as well. I think everything's pretty self-explanatory, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any before they're placed on file.
I want to thank Chief and his staff for the bar graphs.
Would you like, is the topics okay for you?
Yeah, Chief and I talked about these. There's a lot of items on this major crime report. Based upon what Randy and I had mentioned a couple of meetings ago, we do have the traffic stops, we do have the calls for service, and then Chief and I were debating what else to put in there. OWI, theft, and drug arrests were 3 items that seem to be of importance. These can vary from month to month if we have something significant. So again, thank you so much.
Cindy did a really good job with the data compiled and the graphs looked into it, so I can't take credit for that.
No, this is super.
Any other comment? Okay, moving on. We're 11 now. Presentation of Community Maps website. Chief Gearing.
Okay. So, all right, this will be pretty quick, but I think it's useful information. So we've been looking for ways that we can find data or have a data control, I guess, is what we're looking at. And the DOT offers this site completely free. We had to sign up. This is the advanced side of it, so I think it's open just to law enforcement. But what it can do is completely free, and it can help us to gather data for if we want to direct our patrol. So we can narrow down. We go to Wood County. All of this data is driven by accident reports, and they enter into the information that we put into our accident reports and compile it onto these maps. And so we can look at traffic crashes that have injuries. So there's, you can see over there, there's fatality and then suspected injury and suspected minor injury. These are all boxes that we check on the accident reports when we respond to accidents. So we can enter any of these into our search to find out where they've happened. So we'll just look at injury accidents. If we want to find ones where the accident reported speed as a contributing factor, we can narrow down speed, intersection, and so forth. And so far, we can include near accidents. We usually exclude those and do search. And then what it'll do is it'll compile all that data on the map. Looks like very slowly here at the fire department. You know, of course, it's not going to work when you want it to. Let's see, it just glitched. All right. We'll do it again.
Right, you have to put Marshfield in there.
Good catch, Steve. You still got it.
Could you include Marathon County too?
Not at the same time.
Really?
Yeah, because I think it's just one at a time. But this is new to me, so I'm still playing with it and figuring out how it's gonna really help us here. But maybe it only works on police computers. So
Is this more geared toward just traffic accident?
yeah, so all of this is compiled with traffic accidents. We'll just give this a second, maybe it'll load. But what this would do is it brings up a map of Marshfield and has little dots on where all the crashes that contribute to speed and have injuries. And so on all of those dots, what we can do is click on it and go right to that accident report, so we can actually dive into what happened on each one and start to look for similarities in these crashes. So that can help us direct our enforcement. we can do searches through pedestrian hits. So if we can find a cluster of dots that suddenly are happening in our city where we're getting pedestrian hits, we can direct our enforcement to have more traffic enforcement in that area. So what it'll do is just give us a map of where all those crashes are, and we can have a 5-year span, or we can have, I think it's up to 20-year span or something. But like if we search for 5 years that we consistently have crashes in a certain area, that can help us direct our enforcement. It doesn't look like it's able to load up here. We'll give it one more try, but for some reason it's not working here.
Is this a fairly new software that the state's DOT is working with?
Yeah, well, at least it's new to me. I found out about it like a couple of weeks ago and been trying to figure out where I can, or how we could use it and to try to play with it. It works great at my PD, so.
Is this something that the state just offers?
Oh, there's no internet here? Correct. So it won't work without internet. That's the one catch. But no, it's got internet. We went to Google.
Is this a free program through the
Yeah,
state?
it's completely free.
Cool.
See if we can just do less. I wish it would load up here, but we can show you guys at some other time too. If you want to stop in, PD, I can show you. Apologize that it doesn't work here. It only doesn't because we really wanted to. Any questions at all about what it covers?
No, but I think in time, hopefully DOT will incorporate other aspects of traffic.
They are,
Safety.
They're actually hoping to start to integrate, they want to integrate citation information as well. So if we have an area where people are getting a lot of tickets, we can use that data in case it comes handy for whatever reason. So that might help us figure out like what infractions are happening in certain areas or that sort of stuff. So it just helps us get a little bit of data, and it's completely free, which is why it only works half the time.
You gotta pay for it to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry that didn't work, guys.
Thanks, Chief, for that highly intriguing presentation. It's like, it doesn't work.
I will do that.
Okay, fire department activities, training reports, and correspondence.
All right, everything was fairly normal for the month. As you look through though, you are gonna see some different trainings that were conducted, and some of our personnel is going through those trainings for emergency management stuff. And one would be on the bottom of page 12A, would be Lieutenant Fire Attendant Recovery Disaster Course in Adams County. So you'll see those kind of peppered throughout. And other than that, everything was fairly straightforward. We've got a couple development team meetings that we attended, and some of the information there would obviously be in closed session. But overall, everything is moving the way it needs to. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have of the activity reports.
I'll just direct this to Chief Barnes. How are the food vendor inspections going?
Not bad. We haven't had very many show up, but I got a lot of them done during Dairy Fest. They had 30 vendors during the Dairy Fest thing. I did Friday night and Saturday morning. So I know all the licenses come up here at the end of the month, so we'll be starting to see a lot of them. Handful of them, they had minor stuff, basically a hood system needed to be updated and stuff like that. And they've always sent me pictures and stuff with their tags and that. So they're doing well. Working with Rapids and Point yet. We're still in conjunction with them. So I am seeing a few of the vendors that came over from the Point area and all that had their stickers in already. So it's kind of nice to walk up and it's like, oh, you already got inspected by Terrence over there and like that. So the program's working. I can tell you little heads up that Plover contacted me about a month and a half ago or so, and they want to get involved in this also, the fire department, and then potentially Riverside area. They've been looking for a lot of information. I sent them all our information, how we do it, like that. So potentially we may have another one added into this. So we're kind of covering the whole pretty much center of the state here, central part. So it's working. So
The other thing I noted, fire department beat the police department in training activities this month.
Yeah, but they put everything down.
The score was 25-21.
We'll
Gotta do better
missed a couple.
next month.
On the 19th, there's a stepping on class was held there, and what's stepping on class?
The Stepping On class is actually one of our community preparedness programs for senior safety. We've actually partnered with the ADRC, I believe that's with the Development Resource Center for adults. In that program, they actually come in, they use this room because it is an open meeting room, and then basically we set it up for them, help them facilitate it. And we've got firefighter Conrad, who is actually kind of helping to facilitate that program as well. Basically, they come in, do exercises, presentations are done here in the community room, and then they usually spend about 2 hours a week, I believe is what it is. And they've been utilizing that pretty extensively. What they see when they utilize this one versus going over to the community center, they found that their uptick in personnel or people that come in, it goes way up. So they would like to continue using that. I believe Steve would also have some information that he can present on it as well.
If I could just add a little bit, thank you, Chief. The Stepping On program is something that we were doing for years prior to COVID. When COVID hit, we stopped doing it, obviously getting together with public. Since then, it's been fired up again. And it's a huge successful program. We've had a lot of people comment from the public. To this day, statewide and even locally, our number one call is falls. So this is a program that helps prevent falls.
I do believe that once someone falls in their home, it usually doesn't mean that they're going to return home. So if we can alleviate that call, we can keep them home a lot longer.
Thank you.
You bet. You're welcome.
Any other discussion, comment? Okay. Accept the resignation of firefighter recruit Megan Peterson, effective May 20th, 2025.
Thank you. I can give a little information back.
Sure. Yep.
Firefighter recruit Peterson resigned from the department effective immediately on May 20th, 2025 in a verbal conversation in the Human Resources Department with HR Director Sarah Dressel. We would ask that the Police and Fire Commission accept her resignation.
Move to accept the resignation.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Baker,
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Schutz.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes. Wish her the best of luck in her next opportunity.
Absolutely.
Following that, approve the request to immediately backfill one vacant line firefighter position created by the resignation of Megan Peterson. Need a motion, please.
Motion approved.
Second?
Roll call?
Baker,
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Schutz.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes. All right. Approve request to conduct a new recruit interview process in October 2025 to identify qualified candidates for the 2 referendum-approved positions and to also fill the 2 line firefighter positions January 1, 2026, authorized by the April 1st referendum.
I don't have a lot more information for that one, other than we've got the funds that were put together with the 2025 referendum. Basically just trying to get a little bit of a jump on it to make sure that we've got that in place and that we can move forward with the approval on those right away to get those positions filled in January.
Okay, so this is to interview and fill the positions.
Correct.
We have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Baker,
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Schutz.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes. Fine. Consideration of fire and police commissioner for representation at contract negotiations for the city of Marshfield, Marshfield Professional Local 1021.
You bet. with Commissioner Commissioner Keogh, Commissioner Keogh usually sat in on the negotiation committee and basically as a representative to this body so that they had oversight on that. I believe it's just an oversight position. I don't believe there's a lot of things that can be done outside of that. It is part of the city's business to take care of that. But I wanted to bring this because we're going to be coming to a new contract fairly soon. We just closed on the last contract, but we're already up for a new contract as of January 1, 2026. And I wanted to ask if there wanted to be a representative at the commission's discretion as to whether you want a representative there or not, and who you'd want for a representative. I'd leave it to the commission for that.
Yeah, I think that we need to have somebody there. And there's been interest expressed by Commissioner Gershman to be there. I think he has a pretty good understanding of how these contracts are put together. And I feel very comfortable having Commissioner Gershman take care of that and be there for this commission. There any disagreement with that? Okay. Yeah, we'll appoint Randy Gershman to attend these negotiations. That'd be great.
All right, thank you for the guidance.
Yeah. Thanks for the continued invitation. Okay, request to renew the contract for Wisconsin Hazardous Materials Response System Services for the period of July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2027. 2-year contract.
I can expand on that, you bet. The current Northeast Wisconsin Hazardous Materials Task Force contract is set to expire June 30th, 2027. No, it's set to expire as of June 30th, 2025. I apologize, I have my notes wrong. But the next contract would be 2026 through, I believe, 2028, is that right?
25 through 27.
25 through 27, that's right, I'm sorry. So it would be June 30th, and then it'll go through 2027. So June 30th, 2025, so it'll go all the way through 2027. This contract designates Marshfield and Wisconsin Rapids as a joint Type 3 team. When you get into the Type 3 team, basically we're a level A hazard team in the Type 3, meaning we can go to known substances that are known throughout the state of Wisconsin. If it becomes an unknown substance, then it goes to a Type 2 team. And if it becomes a Type 1 where it's a biohazard or something like that, it goes down to the Type 1 team, which is down in Madison, Wisconsin. The key benefits to this contract are a quarterly state subsidy. As a Type 3 team, Marshfield and Wisconsin Rapids will receive a total of $16,625.27 annually, paid quarterly. And then basically what that comes to for the city of Marshfield is we get $8,312.64 that'll come to our jurisdiction alone. So it basically is a split, 50-50 split between the two, and we are a joint team with them. And then we also work through Wood County Emergency Management to basically do Wood County hazmat teams. So they're two separate entities. So we're talking about two separate contracts, but that's kind of how it's facilitated under the hazardous materials rules. Reimbursement for the response costs. The state reimburses verified personnel and equipment expenses incurred during level A responses, including FEMA-based vehicle rates and also wage coverage during that. And then training and equipment grants, supplements funding may be available for training and standardized equipment through the state e-grant portal. Every year we get about $8,000 or a couple $1,000s out of that grant system to replace meters and things like that. And then we also are under the state workers' compensation coverage. So the hazmat team members are considered state employees for workers' compensation when deployed under this agreement. So if there's something that happens outside the jurisdiction within the city, and it is something that's mandated by the state of Wisconsin, we'd be covered under their workers' compensation law. So at this point, there's a couple things that have come up. We're waiting on one verbiage change in there. You can see where it says my name. It says Chief Fleddy on there. We're getting that switched over to my name. They're working on that right now to get that taken care of. And then there's one last review that needs to be done by the city attorney, and they're working on getting that to us. That's been in there for about a week and a half, but he's got kind of a backlog. The only problem we have is if we don't get it approved at this one, then we have a special meeting in the future. I can bring back an update if there's any changes with that or any information, but I'd be asking for approval today so that we can sign that contract by June 30th, 2025 or July 1. But I'd open it up for discussion. I wish I had all the other parts put in place, but unfortunately, there's still some review being done. And to make sure that it meets everything.
Have any of the commissioners read through the contract at all or seen it?
I've dealt with these before through emergency planning committees. It's pretty much a standard contract.
Okay.
It doesn't really change one year to the next.
Okay.
I do have a couple of questions for you. The only type 1 teams we have are Milwaukee, Blair Chippewa Falls. Correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So if we have a type 1 incident, as an example, something happens up on the hill, our response is probably going to come out of Blair and Chippewa Falls.
I would say we have had, we've had chemical spills up there before, and we have handled those spills. We as
I'm looking at biohazard.
if it were a biohazard, yes, we would go to a type 1 team.
I assume they would be coming to us, red lights and siren.
That is correct. As soon as they can assemble their team, there is some assembly on their end.
Yeah.
Because they call off-duty members on their larger facilities or larger teams, so they have actually individualized teams of firefighters that would come in and staff that have that.
And then the same thing if we have they're calling it radiological nuclear detection, use CBR, the past. Again, that would be probably coming out of Eau Claire or potentially Appleton or La Crosse. If we had a radiation incident.
If you had a radiation incident, but I was assuming they would contact medicine with the National Guard team that would come up.
Okay.
So they would probably pull them in as like a supplemental team and then utilize their resources. At any time, we would have to activate it, so we would respond as a city of Marshfield team at this point because it is in the city jurisdiction. So there's 3 levels to this. There's the city team, which we take care of everything in the city jurisdiction. Then we've got the type 3 team, the Wood County team, which is a joint team with Wisconsin Rapids, where we would just, everything in Wisconsin Rapids, it would have to be activated through Wisconsin Emergency Management. And then there's the type 3 team, which would have to go through state Wisconsin Emergency Management, and we would have to notify Badger Red. Badger Red would determine off from our chemical which teams would be dispatched to us. We can request for higher level.
Okay.
But through that, that's how that dispatch goes. And if we don't do that the proper way, then we lose funding. And when you get into hazardous materials things, those become very expensive very quickly. And if you aren't able to do the billing to either the spiller or to the state of Wisconsin, the expense falls on us solely, and we don't want to do that.
I move to approve the contract.
Second.
Need a roll call, please?
Baker,
Yes.
Beek,
Yes.
Schutz,
Yes.
and Hanson.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Chris, can I just add another comment about this?
Sure.
Having sat on some emergency planning committees that have dealt with hazardous materials responses, just for the other members of the commission, and having seen some of the bills, this gets expensive. If you don't do this the right way, you don't want those bills on your responsibility. You're looking at cleanup costs, contractors, subcontractors, damage to equipment, manpower injuries. It becomes quite significant.
And some of those, we've even lost equipment as far as turnout gear and things like
Yeah.
that. And those get very expensive very quickly.
Okay, strategic plan for the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department. Chief Miller.
Yeah, I'll gladly take it from there. We had, well, Steve put in the presentation, we put together a presentation for this, just to go over the higher level stuff. This presentation is basically going to cover the strategic plan that's in front of you. I've talked to some of you offline and had an opportunity to kind of explain some of these elements that are in here. But I'd really like to go through the upper level presentation and make sure the community understands what's going There's some requests in here, and at any given time, I've tried to put measurables that are throughout this, and I'll cover that a little bit later on as well. But there are measurables that are in here. And with the measurables, that means that there's always going to be PFC oversight in every one of these. There's always going to be finance, budget, and personnel when it's needed, and common council oversight. So at any part in this process, this could be kicked out, this could be stopped. So we're not asking to basically replace those positions right now, because you'll see some positions that are going to be asked for and requested in the future. What I'm actually doing is I'm asking for the ability to start to plan for the future and make sure that we're putting the NFPA 1710 staffing and also the ISO classification best practice, plus OSHA 1910 to bring that all under one umbrella. So I'll get started with the presentation. As you look at it, we're looking to try to do it. I apologize, I didn't update that. It actually says 2026 to 2031. I forgot one thing in my own PowerPoint presentation. I apologize for that. But we're looking to do a 5-year span. The reason I'm asking for a 5-year span is when you look at those strategic plans and you look at strategic planning, they say anywhere from 3 to 5 years. This gives us some time to update this. And I don't foresee everything in this document. It's going to be a living document. I don't foresee at the end of 5 years that everything will be completed in here. But we're saying, hey, this is the best strategy that we feel, looking at the data that we have in hand of how we should handle things for the city of Marshfield and moving in the path forward to make sure that we have a strategic plan that's guided by this body and also the common council body to make sure that this is going to align with the city of Marshfield. So why do we want a strategic plan? Increased complexity of calls. As we get into this, we continue to see calls coming in a little bit more. As you look at some of the calls that we've had in the past, at one point we never did anything for response when it came to working with the police department and starting to work on the different things that we do with them. When I talk about that, like the TEMS team, we never really looked at that in the past. We've never looked at responding to schools and going inside schools and being in a spot where we would be able to be shot at. So, this is where we need to have that strategy. We've always had fire, and when you started out with the fire service truly was the fire service. We responded to fires and fires only. We took on ambulance calls, and then they found out, there's a lot of hazardous materials in the community, so we need to start putting that into some part or some format. The fire department stepped up, we started taking on hazardous materials. Then we found out we had confined spaces, and there was problem within confined spaces. So we've had to go ahead and measure and try to build over the top of those things. So what this is trying to say is we're going to be looking at the best way possible to move forward and looking at all the different things and leaving some room in there so that we can actually adapt and change when we need to. So that's kind of what that strategy is going to be for the overall concept of this. As you look at it, NFPA 17 compliance and pressures. As you look at the NFPA 1710 compliance, I'll get into that a little bit later on in the overall strategic plan. Also the ISO scoring, I'm going to get into that just a little bit later. Also recruitment, retention, health and safety and facility needs for the department itself. And then align staffing, equipment, and leadership with risk and demand as we move forward. So the purpose of the plan, the overall goal of a plan is just basically put together that strategy for the future so that we can align it. We can start to plan for things. One thing I saw in this last referendum, we thought about possibly looking at, because we know there's a comprehensive training plan that needs to be put in place, we thought about looking at a training officer, but none of the work had been done prior to this to make sure that that position was put in there. And there's a lot that needs to happen behind these positions. We need to go ahead, we need to make sure that we're checking on studies. We need to make sure that that pay study is correct. We need to make sure that the job description is correct. It aligns with the job itself. And we also need to make sure that we've got policy review at this level. So there's a lot of different steps that we need to do just to put that position in before that position would ever come through the door. So we've got to do that work ahead of time. We feel that this is the most responsible plan to try to put together how we get there. So as you look at our strategic plan, or the purpose of the plan is kind of there to make sure it's aligned with the plan for department growth and PFC oversight responsibilities. Again, 6213, you do have the oversight responsibilities of this, and I want to make sure that you have all the information so that you can make a qualified decision in this case. And then we want to lay the groundwork for implementation of the NFPA 1710 standards, ISO optimization. Right now we're at a 3.2. We feel like we can get to a 2. When you talk to the ISO representatives, they think that's about a 10% cost savings in insurance for industry and commercial businesses. that really equates back to return on investment with economic development because of the fact that businesses would have a lower interest rate. I can tell you that PCA being up in Colby, moving to the city of Marshfield, probably saved them quite a bit of money, and that's why they made that change. And that's why they have a fully sprinklered building here with a response level that's gonna be much higher than what Colby could offer at that point. So you will see some businesses wanting to relocate to this area with a better ISO rate, meaning the insurance that they're gonna be paying in this area. And then strategic staffing, looking at the future, NFPA 1710, we're looking at the residential staffing study. That's just for our bread and butter fires of a resident. That's about 17 staff that we would need on site, and I'll show you that in the future here. Oops. All right, so the strategic plan layout, if I'm gonna look at the layout, if you were to look at this, you got part 1 is the background, part 2 is goal setting, part 3 is gonna be the strategic goal and action plan, and then we get into addendum A and addendum B. I had an opportunity to work with Commissioner Anker quite a bit on this, and he really pointed out something that I thought was a really valid part, and that's the glossary of terms. A lot of times in the fire service, we get really wrapped up in all of our terms and our terminology. We know what it means. A lot of times we kind of just breeze over it. We don't think about it. But for the standard user of this document, the stakeholder out in the community, they may not understand what we're talking about, and then we get into some confusion. So we did ask to put in a glossary of terms to make sure that that was there. So as we get into that, there's the goals that I had. Develop a community risk reduction plan. Ensure the MFRD maintains a high level of operational readiness, so making sure that we're always ready. We've got and that really comes down to policy review. That's a big thing that we're already currently working on. Commissioner Banker has been very good to come in and work with us, and Relief Lieutenant Takis has been a valuable asset in that model. So we're already working on a big piece of this, but we want to make sure that operational readiness is always there. And that also means equipment, it means apparatus, and that means being able to respond for the best points in the city of Marshfield. Goal 3, restructure the MFRD chain of command. I believe there's a more optimal way of doing things, and I can get into that a little bit later on in the presentation. Goal 4, implement a comprehensive training plan, and that's something that's going to be aligned with OSHA 1910 as we get into that. It's really going to kind of paint that overall document out. Goal 5, ensure our members are fit to respond. That's a big thing that we're working on within the community. We're looking at NFPA 1582, which is the physicals, the body physical, making sure that that body is able to respond to the calls. And then we're also looking at the mental welfare of our personnel under NFPA 1582. So that's a big piece of this as well. The background, again, the mission. If you look at the mission statement, we've kind of revised it just a little bit. And basically it reads, the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department protects and preserves lives and property through assessment, prevention, education, and response. So we feel that captures it. Over the next 5-year period, I'd like to work with the staff here at the Marshfield Fire Department and also the PFC to realign that and make sure that that is actually the fit for our department. To make sure that that works for our department. When this was created back in, I think it was 2012, that was the best mission for this department at that time. I want to make sure that's the best fit for this. So for this next 5-year period, that'll be something we'll be working on. Also the vision, external, we want a service standard of excellence to the citizens of Marshfield. And internal, we are committed to each other. That means we have a culture of accountability. We're accountable to one another, that we're gonna do everything that we need to do. That means being fit to respond so that when we get up to that call, we can be at the best when you're at your worst. So that's what we're looking to do in those cases. For the core values, we feel trustworthy, integrity, professionalism, accountability, and teamwork pretty much summarize us as far as our core values and what we should be here. I'd like to look at those over the next 5 years too, but I really feel that those really encompass what we need to be and how we need to go and be efficiently put together for the community. For personnel, the goal setting, and when it comes to part 2 of this with the goal setting, this is what leads us to our major goals that are going to be later on in this document. Some of the things we're looking at for personnel: maintain a professional, well-trained workforce, evaluate the need for full-time training officer, assess the need for a full-time inspector, fire marshal, create and evaluate a merit recognition program, reorganize shift command to battalion chiefs, reorganize deputy chiefs to division chiefs, and evaluate the need for an assistant chief position at the department. So those are some aggressive things, but at the same time, I don't know that that'll all be there by the end of 5 years, but what I am saying is, let me plan for that. Let me put together a good plan so that when it comes time and the funding is there and we have that available, I can work on those things. So I can do all this stuff in the pre-work part and make sure that we're ready to go when we get to the future. Apparatus fleet and equipment, enhanced small equipment replacement planning. We're really looking at our small equipment all the time. I know I've walked through many times with the commissioners and I've walked through a lot of the equipment in the department. We've really tried to move everything over to a replacement schedule, meaning we're replacing that on an annual basis, making it more fiscally and responsible plan. We feel that we could break that up a little bit. One SCBA right now is about $10,200. But if I can break that up and I can buy 4 in a year instead of replacing the 39 that I have here, you can see where that big, vast expense comes. If I can break that up over, replacing 4 in a year and then do that over a 10-year period to make sure that we're NFPA compliant, I feel we're doing a better justice to the budget and to the community so that we have good quality equipment when it comes time to use it. Assess the need for I'm sorry, I'm a little behind on that. Evaluate and refine the current fleet replacement strategy. And then continue to reevaluate, refine the preventive maintenance program. Equipment standardization, that's one thing we've really tried to do across all of our fleet, is make sure all the equipment is the same. So if you go to one engine, you've got the same piece of equipment that would be on another engine. If we don't have that equipment standardization, it gets confusing, and then you think you're working with a piece of equipment, and especially in an emergency situation, that becomes a problem for us. And then technology integration, we've done a good job of that over the years. We've been working on a lot of the technology that we have within the apparatus and also technology within the department. As you can see, there's a larger TV in here. So that's something we're working on with IT department. So we have something to integrate for the future. Also in our apparatus, we're utilizing MDT units, which is very similar to what the police department utilizes, so that we can see state-of-the-art data right in front of us. We also want to make sure that we've got redundancy built into that. So that means having all of our information there in print as well, because there's times when that might go down and we might not have everything we need. Oops. When it comes to the goal setting training, this is a big one. I believe we need to enhance our in-house training program a little bit more. We do a great job of doing some of the training we do, but at some point we need to make sure we're doing more of that with that comprehensive training plan. That means starting to look at the job applications that are being utilized out there, the JPRs, and we want to make sure that aligns with our training program. And then also strengthen the officer development program, so when our officers are ready to step into that position at a later part, that's continuity planning. When we need a chief in the future, there would be a chief that would be able to step into that role. They would understand it. We've got a relief lieutenant here. Relief lieutenant are going through some of the job requirements, and basically they have a plan to work on that plan and basically become the best that they could be, so they're ready for lieutenant and also deputy chief later on when it's time to go ahead and move into those positions. So always looking for those things. And then also look at our annual training competency program. That's where that overall training and compass program comes in and how it plays in. We want to make sure we got a solid training program that's going to comply with OSHA 1910 and also NFPA 1001 and 1021. 1001 is the professional qualifications for firefighters, and 1021 is the professional qualifications for fire officers. So we're going to make sure we're consistent with that, and we've got the information that's outlined. Also following with SPS 330, it outlines that we have to have certain positions filled and the education there to do it. So to be an officer in the state of Wisconsin, you literally need to have Fire Officer 1 certification to take on that role. You've at least had to have attended the class. You may not have to have the certification, but you need that, as well as like our apparatus. So when it comes to being a MPO or an ATO, that's a motor pump operator, our first engineers, or our truck operators, you have to have that qualification in place before you can step seat or put your butt in the seat and drive that vehicle. So we got to make sure those things are being done. Also, to be a firefighter inside a fire, you need NFPA or State 1 fire certification under NFPA 1001 to make sure that you have those fire qualifications to do that job. So we want to make sure it aligns with that. And then career development and succession. The emergency medical service plan, we want to make sure we're enhancing our EMS training. That's a vast majority of what we do in this industry. We do probably about 92% of our call volume is EMS in nature, whether it be responding with an engine to an EMS call or whether it be just the EMS call with the staff on the ambulance. We feel that that's something we need to make sure we're engaging and make sure we've got a good platform to train our personnel. Increase public engagement and outreach. Also evaluate paramedic intercept and interfacility transfer partnership. We'd like to look at that and just kind of see what that is going to be for the future. There's been a lot of changes since the original contracts that we had. If you look at it now, Marshfield Clinic is owned by Sanford Health. So there may be some change. There may be some different things that they want to see out of the contract. And we'd like to see how we could basically utilize that and do what's best and position us for a successful future. Refine EMS equipment replacement planning. I will say this, Deputy Chief Backus has gone above and beyond in that process to make sure that that is captured in the capital improvement project. The enterprise fund is kind of a set-aside account. It's a fee-based schedule, and basically that could roll from year to year. So we can actually start to accrue money into that fund so that we can pay for ambulances and things like that. So we've done a good job of making sure of that. We just want to make sure we refine that and we're getting all the equipment that we possibly could utilize out in the field to make sure we've got the best application out there. And then explore the development of a community paramedic program. I know that was one that I heard at one of the listening sessions for the referendum. Someone had asked me about that question, and I really didn't have a great response at that point. I know we've looked at it a little bit in the past. It wasn't necessarily feasible at that time, but we'd like to look at it again and just see if there is something there that could possibly keep people at home a little bit longer. We do have an aging population across the United States. It's not consistent with just our department or just the city of Marshfield. This is across the United States. So I think it's something we should look at. I think it's something we should really visit. And then continue to enhance the EMS QA program. QA means we're looking over reports, refining and evaluating through that report and the information and documentation, what we could do better in the future. And then also that's gonna help us with the reimbursement we get through insurance. So we wanna make sure we've got a good quality QA program so we're getting the most money we can utilizing the ambulance that we have, and also make sure that our training is optimal. For the goal setting for facilities, we wanna assess future fire station needs and placement and advance the development of the fire training center. We've already started some of these goals. If you look at the fire training center, we're well on our way in that area. SEH is studying the problem right now, and hopefully we'll have an answer by the end of this year. Actually, September 1st is when we're scheduled to do that. For future station study needs and placement, I'll show you some of the maps that we have in the front. I believe we have enough data right here that we don't necessarily need to go to a study. But if the Police and Fire Commission or the Common Council feels like a study is warranted, I'll gladly look at that. But those are usually about $35,000 to $50,000. And I believe utilizing the GIS department and also the city resources, we could probably go ahead and save $35,000 to $50,000 to really put it towards what we really need to do to answer the problem. The next one, community risk reduction. We're looking at enhanced public fire and EMS education. We want to continue to enhance that. There's a lot of it's outlined in state statute that says that we need to do certain parts of public education, especially in the schools. We need to do the school visits each and every year. So we want to make sure we're doing that as well, and we look at how we strengthen those. Expand emergency for planning into commercial occupancies. So the pre-planning that we're looking at, we want to make sure we're getting in there, getting our firefighters in to do the footprint and get their boots on the ground so they can do a walkthrough of that establishment and make sure that they understand what it looks like when it looks like this right now instead of a smoke-filled building. So as they can put together that comprehensive plan or that pre-plan, they can start to establish that pre-plan, make it look good on paper, so that when we need to go do things as far as training, we can utilize the technology we have here at the department. We don't necessarily need to do a site visit, and they can come back, they can do a presentation to the entire shift and other shifts to show exactly what's in that building. Our goal there is to look at what the emergency services that are in that building, what do we need to get to, what are the things that we need to shut down, what are some of the fire protection systems in the building. So we know that ahead of time, and if we know that ahead of time, we're going to be that much farther ahead in the strengthening of that part. And then enhanced smoke alarm and home safety programs. The risk assessment is a big one as far as this too, the community risk assessment. Want to make sure we're looking at that. Vision 2020 does a really good job of this. This is something that's big, and then also Craig 1300. These are computer programs we can utilize to put data in. And what they do is they look at what we have for responses here in our community. And when they look at that community risk reduction, it's not only just in fire, but it's EMS, hazmat, all the different ones. We can go ahead and pare down. If we're seeing that we're having major fires over at the high-rise building for 606 South Walnut, if we find that we're having a lot of fires in there, we can go ahead and pair an education program that's going to fit for that and maybe curb some of those fires for the future, making sure that we've got a good response. So it's going to alleviate some calls, save some dollars, and make sure that people are going to be safe in their home. And if we can do that, we'll gladly work on that part of the program. Smoke alarm and home safety programs. If you look at smoke alarms right now in most houses and most house fires, there is no active smoke alarm after the fact. the batteries are out, smoke alarm isn't working. So those are things we have to think about as well. And then promoting fire and life safety legislation. Right now, a big one that's out there for fire and life safety legislation is going to be the single stairwell legislation that they're trying to institute. This has been instituted in other states. So that means for like anything that's a 3-story apartment or greater, they want to go to just a single stairwell. I think everyone in here can kind of understand why a single stairwell in a fire condition is not the best avenue. If you've got a fire in the stairwell, how do you get the exit in or how do you get people out? They say that there's a lot of safety involved in that because of the sprinkler system and all the other things. We feel that that's not the best case. 2 in, 2 out rule is always the best way to go forward to that. So that's where we work on state legislation to make sure that's it. Right now, another one that's a big one that's facing the state of Wisconsin is NFPA 1 2012 edition. When we get into the ISO standard, that's why I've asked for the IFC to be adopted in the municipal code here. But when you look at that 2012 code, we're supposed to be within 5 years for our ISO audit. We lose points, and the state of Wisconsin is responsible for that. So we are lobbying through different groups to make sure we get that code enforced. There's things such as the batteries, and I know you brought that up a lot, Commissioner Banker. When you look at batteries that are being utilized, we're getting a lot of fires in those. And right now, we have no way to do anything with the code, utilizing the code to make sure that's all right. So this, we believe, is the most responsible method when we get to the IFC, or possibly just at least getting to the most revision of NFPA 1 to make that a responsible choice for the community. To the last one, administration, health and safety. Implement a physical fitness program for all members. We've talked about that many times. Incident safety officers. We want to develop incident safety officers, meaning continuous development. I don't think we need an individual incident safety officer. We just need to make sure people have the training. So when we're on a scene, we've got someone with eyes on it, looking at the overall scene to make sure that we're being safe in all operations that we're doing on the scene. That means we're saving lives of our firefighters. And then implement a cancer prevention program, emphasize succession planning and leadership roles, and then engage the public and conduct a SWOT analysis. SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We kind of did that a little bit under the referendum. I got some good feedback out of the referendum. That was an opportunity, but I'd like to see more town halls in the future, basically being driven by me, the commissioner wanted to attend, and I'd like to do it in the districts out in the community to explain what our problems are and our situations are for the community. The next one, emergency management. This is a pretty broad topic and there's a lot of things in here, but overall we want to make sure we've got a good plan. When you look at FEMA really can't respond to the community. They've got about a 1-week window where it's going to take for them to mobilize and get here. So for that 1 week, we need to make sure that we're stable and ready to go. So we believe having a comprehensive plan put together, having pre-planned events, doing a lot of quality training with the officials that are going to be at the EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Center, and starting to facilitate all those things. We've already started Relief Lieutenant Fighter with the emergency management program, and he's starting to become some of the EM courses, the emergency management courses, to be an emergency management person. We think that would be a great addition to the department and also to the city of Marshfield to make sure we're planning for the future. So we want to make sure we bring that underneath here. I had talked to Commissioner Panker a little bit about this, but really, honestly, when it comes to this could be its own strategic plan. It probably should be. So that might be something we adopt for the emergency management as we move forward as well. That could be possibly adopted by this one. But there's so much in it and so much depth to it that it's something we should really be looking at. The strategic goals and planning. When you look at your planning, I've got 5 strategic goals in there, and all of that stuff that we just talked about throughout all those planning parts, that's what led us to those 5 strategic goals, and that's what's going to get us here. If you look at that, I'm looking at community risk reduction, operational readiness, chain of command restructure, comprehensive training program, and then fit to respond, which really details 3 things: health, wellness, and also safety. If you look at all 3 of those elements, we feel that's a vital part of that to make sure that person is fit to respond. So when we say fit to respond, it's not just about fitness. It's really about everything that goes into that. So we want to make sure we've got that put together. And then when you look at each one of the goals, you're going to be looking at objectives, key actions, timeline, assigned responsibilities, and measurables. Underneath that measurable section, that's where you have the oversight and guidance of this. As the PFC, I've got to bring all of these things through you, and we've got to basically talk about those and make sure there's agreements here. And if there's any funding or feasibility where it needs to go higher than this, it go to the finance, budget, and personnel, and also onto the Common Council for final approval. So anywhere in there is oversight on all of this plan. There's no time where there wouldn't be oversight in any part of this. The first goal is going to be community risk reduction. I was looking at the comprehensive emergency management plan, also public information community risk reduction officer, adopt latest revision of the International Fire Code, and establish a full-time fire inspector in this position. If I look at that, some of the current gaps and risks that we have, right now emergency planning is siloed across departments. So if you look at the fire department, they've got a plan. You look at City Hall, they've kind of got a plan. You look at the police department, they've probably got a plan in their area. We look at public works, they probably have a different element of it, and they all have different key elements in that. We feel that that should really come under one plan. It also has limited unified citywide response frameworks for all hazard events, weather, hazmat, mass casualty, and also cybersecurity. We did one recently with Ping about cybersecurity, and if you look at some of the ones around the country, just in cybersecurity alone, they can shut down a city for months on end trying to get all of their information and criteria. So we need to figure out things to put that in place. And also limited public awareness, training, or continuity plans for essential city services. If I were to ask people to basically leave their home or have them shelter in place, a lot of the community doesn't understand what that means. They don't understand when they shelter in place, that means I need to go ahead and shut all the doors, turn the furnace off, shut all my windows, make sure I block the doors if I've got any areas where air can get in, and try to keep that as isolated as it can from the outside community. And there's a reason for it, because we have chemicals rolling through the air, which can be an asphyxiant. So we want them to be sheltered in place, and we're hoping that the hazard will pass them. But right now, we don't have a good communication system to get out there and tell people that, and we're trying to work on that piece as well. And then Emergency Operations Center lacks comprehensive, regular, updated plan for activation and management. Right now, we're working on that to put that together. The EOC typically gets set up in here, and we're trying to put together training that happens on a monthly basis, or at least at the EOC meetings, so that that can come into play to make sure that's taken care of. So what a master plan will provide is a unified city response strategy, public-facing preparedness and outreach, resource management and mutual aid clarity, and also training and exercises. A lot of that can be done through Wisconsin or Wood County Emergency Management. We can work and align with them to make sure that that comes under play, and a lot of that funding can come from them. Some of the strategic benefits are going to be complies with the FEMA, DHS, and Wisconsin Emergency Management best practices. Resilience and public trust, we can start to build that through public education and start to work on that plan overall. And then reduce the response time, confusion and duplication of efforts during emergencies. So the police department isn't doing one thing, the fire department's doing another thing, public works is trying to do something different. We all come under one umbrella when that emergency does happen. And then support future funding opportunities through different grants and things like that for the community. Public information, I know we talked about public information officer. I kind of do this a little bit differently. We have community risk reduction as well, and I think that this could be paired well with that. Not only are we doing community risk reduction, we talked about using the Craig 1300. Craig 1300 is a software that looks at all those different responses we have within our community. Basically gives us a heat map. We also have one through the state of Wisconsin for EMS. That gives us a hot map of where all the calls are happening within our community. And we can dig down into that data and find out what kind of stuff we can do to better educate people in those spots and see what we can do for those areas. So those are some of the parts. But our current challenges, we have no dedicated staff to public communication, media relations, or fire prevention outreach. It's kind of done in a scattered manner. We try to do community outreach. A lot of times it's what time do I have available at the end of the day? And really, this I feel it needs a lot more eyes on it, and it needs to be more apprehensive for the community. If you look into the community studies, a lot of people have said that truly the community wants more information from us, and I think we need to give them as much information so they can make decisions at the end of the day too, because they pay the tax at the end of the day. The tax levy is where we get the funding from, and they need to understand exactly how that money's being spent, and I don't know that we've always had the opportunity to do that. So I feel this is a way we could do some piece of that. Community risk reduction programs are fragmented and reactive. A lot of times it's done through the fire prevention office. It is more reactive in nature of how we're doing it. Meaning the problem happens, we find out there's no smoke detector, so we get up and we do a citywide smoke detector program for about 2 months, but then that falls by the wayside and we have something else. So we feel we could do a better job proactively throughout the year by having somebody that would be designated to do some of those things. Also, public engagement is limited to incident-driven interaction, not proactive education. So really, like I said, that incident is what's driving some of this stuff, and we think we can do a better job of it. And then existing staff lack capacity to consistently manage prevention campaigns or maintain public-facing transparency. If you look at the fire prevention office alone, it has emergency management assigned, it has fire prevention. Those are two big areas alone. We also have arson investigation into the fire prevention office. public education that's in that office. And then we also have all the fire inspections and oversight of the fire inspection program, plus getting out and actually interacting with new businesses to make sure that they have a good system that's installed. And we do a lot of competency testing on those things. So we feel we can do a better job in that area. Some of the role overview, we want to make sure we serve as a designated spokesperson and media liaison for the MFRD. So that's during the emergency time. If you look at what a PIO really does, 95% of their time is really in the background. They're consistently working on the background things, making sure they're putting things in place. They're working with all the social media. They're working with the media to get stories out, get different presentations put together. They also take care of a lot of your media releases to make sure that the continuity is there, and then it's going to be a focused assemble for the future. And then they're also, each person writes a media release just a little bit differently. They can help to make sure we're getting the identified information out there and then follow up with any media organizations as they come in. Right now, what ends up happening is a shift commander comes in, writes the media, and then they go home for the day because they work on 24-hour shifts. And now someone from the media calls, and we're trying to go back and look at the media document, and I don't necessarily have somebody there, and I don't have that good ability to take care of that, whereas that person could take care of some of that facilitated. Lead community education programs, so really we want them to oversee the community education program and make sure that's right. Also coordinate risk reduction strategies targeting vulnerable populations, manage social media press releases, and support public trust throughout the clear, timely manner of getting that information out to everybody. Some of the key benefits are build community engagement, prevention awareness, support the ISO scoring and strategic plan, enhance department transparency and credibility, relieve operational staff from reactive uncoordinated messaging, and then position MFD as a trusted proactive partner in public safety. We feel like all of those things would really help with that position, but I know you had presented on the public information officer. I think we could take it just one more step and possibly put community risk reduction with it, assigning a few more lateral parts, and if the police department, if they can work together with them as well, we could have a unified approach to how we're doing this, along with the EOC emergency management during big scale events. So I think that's an option that we could look at. The IFC, when we look at the next one, goal 1-3, looking at the IFC, this basically relies on an outdated code provision. So when we look at our provision, NFPA 1/2012, ISO says we need to be within 5 years of that. If we're not within 5 years, we lose points. Fire prevention enforcement is limited by inconsistent or obsolete fire safety standards. So when you look at those obsolete ones, like I was talking about with batteries, there's nothing in there for a provision to even capture that. We're even looking at one problem we're having right now, which is in one of the hangars at the airport. There's actually a code that's adopted under 2022. We're trying to figure out how to go ahead and take care of this building when some parts are not really up to date as to what we have. So that's an issue for us as far as making sure it aligns with the code. So we want to make sure we can do that and do it well. The other part that ends up happening here is when we look at the building, how the building is built, a lot of times when we try to line that with NFPA 1, because it's built under the International Building Code, and it comes over to NFPA 1, and we've got to try to find fragmented pieces to align that together. So we oftentimes have to go down different routes to try to find that, whereas the IBC and the IFC align right directly. If it says 9502.16, it'll say 9502.16 on this one as well. And it basically, if it's high piled storage, it goes to high piled storage. So it's real easy to follow and make sure we've got that information ready, and then we can utilize that. So if we're building them one way, we should also inspect them that way as well. The nice part about this one is it will actually pull in the NFPA standards when it needs to. There are some things that are more stringent, and the IFC will reference those when it's needed and pull those in so we can still utilize the NFPA if we need to for certain parts of it silent on the IFC. So when you look at the latest one, modern life and safety standards, improved code enforcement tools, basically everything I talked about. Some of the key benefits, it's going to help us directly support the ISO rating, align MFRD with state and national fire code trends, and reduce risk liability across all occupancy types, and promote a safer, more resilient built environment. So as we get through that, we can make sure that that building is going to be code compliant for the future. We get to the dedicated fire inspector, fire marshal. The current problem is we have fire inspections and code compliance are handled by on shifts, basically diverting away from training. When they're taking care of a big piece of that, they end up having all the shift training things that need to happen as well. So they're losing some of that training element, and I need them to train with the staff. If they're going to be going with 2 firefighters, that officer should be with them. But unfortunately, we're separating. We're taking the 2 firefighters from that officer. They're going down and doing training, and the officer's going out and doing fire inspections. That doesn't align well when it comes to an actual scene and the problem. So we'd like to go ahead and pair that together and make sure they have more time to do the training, and then possibly spread some of the shift inspections throughout the shift, and then do pre-planning along with shift inspections. If we had a dedicated person, they can take care of some of the things that we need to do on the fire inspection, such as fire investigation and also some limited enforcement capacity. So I want to make sure they've got the enforcement capacity, and that's where a sworn officer comes in a little bit better. They can go out and make sure things are being done, it's being outlined, the laws are being covered, and it's all there. So some of the proposed role for the fire inspector, fire marshal, they'd be a full-time or a full-time civilian or sworn position, conduct routine and compliant basic fire life safety inspections, lead and document fire origin and cause investigations, enforce adopted fire code, and then educate business and property owners on hazard reduction. A lot of times we get a lot of questions on that area where they'll call us out. They'll ask us where they should put together, like if they have tornadoes or where they should shelter for those tornadoes. That's a piece of our job as well, which can also go on the emergency management side. And then serve as a liaison to the police, legal, and development services during post-fire enforcement. So if there's ever a problem afterwards, they could be that liaison, they could be on scene. They will also take care of the fire investigation, a big piece of that, along with some of our other fire investigators. Some of the key benefits here, it's gonna offload a lot of those inspections from the ship themselves. And then it's going to provide consistent defensible fire investigation tied to code enforcement. Also improve public safety through targeted risk reduction and education. Enhance ISO PPC scoring, which is going to help us in the future in community risk reduction. Some of the operational readiness, when we get to this part, phased approach and on funding safer grant fees. So implementing the 17 staffing model. Apparatus replacement strategy, we're going to look at the CAP and grants, possibly look at a different way like the street department does it, look at maybe a 700 fund where we can put a lot of our fees in there. Improve response reliability through lifecycle fleet management. So we continue to do that every day. We're always looking at ways we can go and do more proactive approach to our fleet maintenance to ensure that we get the longevity of our vehicles. We do a replacement right now of 20 years on a fire apparatus and 25 years on a ladder truck. So we want to make sure that's available. And then evaluate the additional fire stations. So staffing, station independent study. If it's warranted, if the commission feels that's warranted, we would certainly do that, or the city feels that's warranted, we would do that. We feel like we have enough data in place, but at the same time, I'm glad to go out and do that and check my homework. There's no problem in that area. If I look at NFPA 1710, I kind of put together what we're going to be looking at for 9 on duty, and I think this is a really good depiction of that. So when we go to 9 on duty, that's going to be when we get to full staffing at 12. We'll have a minimum staffing of 9, meaning that we'll have 3 personnel off any given day. Hopefully we'll have 12 throughout the year, but there's going to be times people need to take vacation, some time off, and a lot of other things to happen. There's also going to be sickness involved in that. So what we would do is restaff to 9 to make sure we have that covered. In that case, you're going to be looking at an incident commander on a scene. We wouldn't have anybody to aid that incident commander, but we'd have 1 engineer, 2 fire attack crew, 2 backup crew, 2 victim search and rescue, 1 water supply. But we are going to be lacking in ventilation and also the aerial truck operator. And if you look down, the one part that's actually cut off from the screen, can you put that on just a little farther, is going to be the rapid intervention crew. These are the folks that save people. So they're going to be set aside with all their equipment ready to go. In the event that we get a firefighter that's trapped in that building, they're going to go in and they're going to rescue that firefighter. They bring in all the equipment, they bring all the aspects of that, and they're going to put that in place to make sure that we get those people out in a quick manner. So they're ready to go. They're rapid and ready to go and ready to go in the door. Problem is right now, under the current system, I'm going to be 0 there as well. If you look over at NFP's 10 staffing, that allows us to align better with that staffing and what we need for resources on the scene. And that's kind of what we'd be looking at to do. I don't see that happening quickly where we just hire everybody immediately. What I see is a phased approach to that plan. And I think moving our way in that direction is going to be the best part. We keep our eye on the goal and we continue to do it when we can. Not trying to put the city in an adverse condition. I just want to make sure that we're capturing what we need to do and we continue to model ourselves in that direction when the funds are available, if they become available. As I move forward on this, some of the response objectives, the big area that you'd be looking at, I apologize. Jody, I think I got your thumbs today, I'm sorry. All right, the big one you'd be looking at in this area is this right here, the 82nd. Okay. The 82nd and 242nd, that gives us 520 seconds. basically it's a 4-minute response model is what ends up happening. We have 80 seconds for turnout. So when I talk about 80-second turnout time, that means the time it takes for us to go get the call, receive the call. Once we receive that call, we basically take the call from there. We start to get ready. We go ahead and look at the maps. We make sure that we get our turnout gear on. We try to shoot for 60 seconds to go ahead and take a little time off from that because we know every second counts. In today's fire world, it's about 3.5 to 5 minutes is about the time it takes. With 3.5 to 5 minutes, we feel that we need to be there on scene as soon as possible because you can have an entire flame over condition in that 3.5 to 5 minutes, meaning there's no survivable condition inside that building. The faster we can get there, the better we can get there, the more we can mitigate that situation faster, meaning more time on the scene as far as the safety. If you were to look at this map, as far as the map goes, you're gonna see the green area in there. It's kind of a lighter green or the lighter center area. That's the 4-minute response time that we have in the city of Marshfield. If you look at the yellow band in there, that's gonna be from 4 minutes to 5 minutes. And then when you get to the orange section, that's gonna be 5 minutes to 6 minutes. And when you get to the red section, that's all 6 to 10 minutes. If you look up in this area right here, we've got a lot of businesses up here and we've got a lot of apartment buildings up in this area. Those are what they would call a garden variety apartment building in those areas. With those spots, we feel that there's kind of an area that, or at least a spot in this area or location where we should be doing something in those spots. Another critical area would be down in here where the airport is. With the airport response, we just took on a larger airplane in that area. They also have a kind of a master plan that's going to facilitate more building in that area possibly. Not saying it will happen, but it is saying that there is a plan for this for the future. So that'd be a spot that we could see having something there. And then we also just took on 40 acres over in this location right here for the industrial park to build onto those locations. So that's something that is going to be something we look at for that response. When we talk about response times under NFPA 1710, that the first engine needs to be on site within that 240-second or 4-minute time frame. Meaning the minute they pass through that door, that's when the time starts, and to the time they arrive at that location. We have a really good central station as far as the central area, but there's a lot of the outlying areas that we continue to expand and we continue to grow. And we feel that those are areas that really need to be identified as something we can do something in the future. The other part is you get that first engine, which means you get 4 firefighters on scene in that first 4 minutes. After 8 minutes, we're actually looking at getting the rest of the complement, which would be the rest of the 17 firefighters. That's when they would come on scene and they would take care of that part of it. So the ISO rating, when we look at ISO rating, how that's broken down is water supply is 40%, 10% is going to be the quality of emergency communication system, that's Wood County Dispatch, and then the other part, 50% is the fire department. How does that equate to the fire department? We're at a 79.38 or a 3.2 right now. We're very close to going to a 2 with some changes with personnel, possibly looking at some staffing structure and also our training standards. And then looking at infrastructure within the community, we feel we can get to a 2 very easily. And then we feel that, after that, you should be looking at a 1. But right now, the 2 would be the one that we want to identify. The fire department score, if you look here, you're going to see that deployment station infrastructure, up on deployment, we're going to be about a 6.94 in that area. We could definitely help that area with the red areas that you saw in the community. We could definitely embrace that and make that better. When you look at personnel, we're doing kind of poorly in that area at a 7.58. They don't really give you that scoring match on that one because every community is just a little bit different. But if you get personnel, that's going to be able to help you on that ISO score as well. And then when we look at training, right there we feel with a comprehensive training plan and working on the training center with a 3-story facility, we're going to be able to meet that need and we're going to be able to improve that greatly and just not too far off. For the ISO map, if you were to look at the blue area, that's about 1.5 miles from the central station. That's how they consider it. That should be your engine response area. As you can see, the vast majority of the city is kind of out of that response area. So when they come to do this, those points count against us when it comes to infrastructure. When you look at the yellow, that's going to be about a 2.5 mile circle, and that's for a ladder truck. Really, I don't see having another ladder truck in the city. They're an expensive element, but we do have the ability now to actually bring in Spencer Fire Department. They have a 100-foot aerial in their fleet, and that's something they can respond with 4 people to that north section up here. If you look at that north section, we've got some issues right up in there, and they can respond in those locations to maybe help us out and facilitate that. So we're trying to work on those agreements all the time. For OSHA 19.156, again, this is going to be a statute coming out adopted under SPS 330. really, when you look at that, the proposed standard continuous national incident management system, we're doing really good. So any one of these spots you see green, we're doing an excellent job. And we've got a good NIM system or national incident management system. We've got good after action reviews. We've got good medical evaluations, equipment and apparatus standards. We're staying on top of those things. Some things we could do some improvement on, performance-based standards. That's getting into our comprehensive training plan. Also looking at specific domains, we'll need to consider scope training and capability. So we'll have to look at those different scopes. That's where we're going through our policy review right now. Once we get through that policy review, we feel like we'll be doing a really good job for that one. Competency-based training, again, going back to that comprehensive training. Pre-plans for target hazards, we're gonna identify that. That's something we've been working on and trying to update those as much as we possibly can. But we have a lot of businesses. We have about 1,500 businesses in the community, and it takes a while to get through all of those. Written standard operating procedures, we're working on that. Annual fitness for duty assessments, we're working on that. And access to mental health care, just started that this year, but we are working on it. The other thing we'll need to do is a full risk assessment of the community. That's an area we don't have anything. We've never done a risk assessment of our community. That's something we'll be working on. Also staffing requirements, we could do a much better job in that area, but we're working with what we have. We're very happy. I want to make sure I enlighten that. We're very happy that we were able to pass the referendum and get back to the staffing from 2021 level. But we think we have an area that we could possibly work on for the future. Again, some of the information we've had in the past, I don't want to go through every one of these, but the one that really kind of stands out, September 1st, 1971, there was a feasibility study done at that time, and it called for 15 firefighters per shift at that point and at that location and time. They also projected growth, and here's what the city looked like at that time. So when you look at the red area, that's what the city looked like. They projected growth to be the northwest quadrant, and there should have been a station by 1985, is what that study projected. That was an outside facility study. You can see we're still in the central station, and we haven't really followed through with that, but it's something that's out there. I think we should look at our data from the past and really kind of look at those lessons that we've learned over time and continue to facilitate those. The call volume continues to go up. If you were to look at our calls right now, they're continuing to kind of trend up in that direction. The nice part is over here, though, we have gone to 11.33. We've gotten ourselves back to 12 as of 2026. So right now we're at 11 and 12 on one shift. We'll be at full strength of 12 as of January 1, 2026. So we're starting to see that at least pairing with it. Otherwise, we were fairly flat for quite a few years. Some of the chain of command restructure I'd like to look at.
Chief,
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you here, but I feel like your presentation has gone off course a little bit.
Okay.
This is a part of the presentation that we had before.
Right.
Is this going to tie into the ending of your?
Yes.
Okay, because we're near 30 minutes.
Sure. I can actually just go through and breeze through this really quickly. I'm going to be looking at a couple different positions, but the big thing I want to look at is the chain of command. Right now, we've got a flat structure in here. If you look at that, we got 5 spots, they're flat. We really don't have any chain of command restructure on it. There's some positions I'd like to do and basically looking at those, but I can show you just the picture, the overall structural picture of this. I'll flash through these, and I'll get you to these. When you look at this is kind of what we'd like to go to as far as a model. I believe there's a lot of things that I need to do for the department. If I were to look at an assistant chief position, that position can take care of the operations from a daily basis. If I'm looking at the higher level positions, that's going to be something that I should be looking at for strategic planning. I should be looking at the focus for everything, and then overseeing all 5 of those positions right there. Those 3 positions plus the battalion chiefs, making sure some of the part of the operation, but that would be my facility and my job, but making sure the vision of the department is there, making sure I can meet with the community, and also facilitating that. The assistant chief right now would basically take care of the operations within the community or the operations within the department, hazardous materials, taking care of any of those things that they would need to take care of as far as that. Right now, that's taken care of at the department level or at the shift commander level, and really their job is personnel management, making sure that's facilitated throughout time. So if you look at what their occupation would be or what that position would be for the assistant chief, they take on hazmat, confined space, special rescue, and they would make sure they have that underneath their umbrella. When you look at Division Chief of EMS, continue to keep their position. They are basically overseeing that. Division of Fire Prevention and Emergency Management, they have the PIO, Community Risk Reduction, and Fire Marshal Inspector falling underneath that one. And then Division Chief of Training, they basically oversee training, and they would facilitate a lot of those things that would go in there. As you move forward, if you were to go ahead and expand to the second station, this is how that model starts to work for you. And as the city continues to grow, you can start to go ahead and grow with the city. So I believe it's a responsible choice to look at those things. Again, you would have full oversight on this entire thing. There's nothing in here that you wouldn't have oversight on. This is something you would have the ability to look at. When you look at the comprehensive training plan, again, I'm gonna be going through and looking at the structural parts of that. I've kind of talked about making sure it's JPR aligned, making sure all the pieces are there and the career tracks are there. Community and officer deployment and development, that would also be there as well. For fit to respond, I want to make sure that we're just basically covering those three things I talked about all the way through the presentation. As far as the SWOT analysis, I want to make sure that we're getting back out and talking at town hall meetings. The last one that was conducted was in 2016. And then 79% rated excellent or good, and they thought we could do a little bit better job in some areas on that one. I feel like we should get back out and do another SWOT analysis to make sure that's right. And over the next 5-year period, I'd like to do that. There should be a crosswalk with the following standards: NFPA 1710, 1582, 1583, and 1021. Those are all specified out there. And then engage with the city administrator, HR, finance, and development services, along with this body right here. Oops. So funding the plan, there's just some different options that are available out there, and I kind of wanted to present those as far as a piece of it. The requested action here today: begin phased approach to NFPA 1710 implementation, training division officer, assistant chief deployment process, adopt the IFC and establish fire inspector position, PIO, and then also station needs study by December 2026. If we need one, or if this body feels we need one, we can certainly look at that. Some of the short-term goals, the long-term outcome will be a better position for NFPA 17 and ISO Class 2 alignment, improve community risk reduction, and then better retention, wellness, and preparedness of staff. And again, strengthen partnership and public trust with the community. And what I'm looking for today is basically either a discussion or possible approval. My humble approach to this would be asking for the approval to start the plan for the future of the city and for the fire department over the next 5-year period. I know there's a lot in here, and I didn't necessarily expect to have approval of it today. If we could talk about it in another meeting, I'd definitely talk about that and discuss anything that you'd like to discuss on that. We kind of put it on there in the event that there was possibly a consensus for approval, but I do understand there's a lot in this document, and I'd certainly like to reach out and talk to anyone that might have anything or any questions might be out there. I can certainly do that. But I'd like to at least have the opportunity to answer any questions you might have at this point. I apologize for the length of it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of content in here, and there's a lot of information. I didn't want to miss anything. I wanted to make sure you had the information that was available to you. So at this point, I'd open it up to the floor for any questions you may have.
Can you go back to that graph where you had the PIO and what you're looking to go in for going forward for the 5-year plan? Had 2 positions that I would like to know if those or any, I think it was right there. The PIO and the fire marshal inspector. The PIO we know would be a new position, correct?
Correct.
The fire marshal inspector, would that be an existing employee that would fill that?
I'm thinking in my mind, it probably would be a newer employee. And the reason for that is we're already at the max capacity for shift. I really can't pull anybody from the shift. We already have shift inspections, but it doesn't necessarily align well with the overall top part, what we talked about, trying to pull some of those off so we could have more time for training to make sure those suppression personnel are really ready for the response plan.
So are those really the only 2 new positions then on there? That would be
There's actually
costs.
4 new positions on there.
Okay.
And that's where over time, like I said, over the next 5-year period, I don't foresee this, but I see as we grow into a different department, we have the ability to grow, we have the ability to engage all the stakeholders and make sure that they have this information. And there would be 4 positions: assistant fire, division chief of training, PIO community risk reduction, fire marshal inspector. The 2 positions I could see trying to go to probably a little bit sooner would be the fire inspector position. We might be able to do that through some fee schedules and possibly cover that position. And then division chief of training, that would be the other one that's really going to meet the comprehensive training plan and really meet it. The other 2 positions would be outliers. Those 2 would be over time. And then again, if we were to move to something that looked like the next model, that's going to take time to get there. But what I was trying to do is project out that would be what future growth would be. If you do get to a second station, it gives you a responsible approach to that. Could it be done with less personnel with a second station? It can. We would need to go ahead and look at it. That would be a perfect scenario right there, but there are some other options that would be available. And again, we could study that problem and make sure it looks right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is there Any other questions that can be answered?
Chris, I suggest we carry approval over to August.
You making a motion for that, though?
Yeah, I move that we carry the final consideration of the strategic plan to the August meeting. There's a lot of material there.
Absolutely.
There's a lot to go through.
Can I add something to that, or is it too late?
You want to amend? Well, we don't have a second yet.
Yeah, so my concern is there's 4 positions that will increase the cost overall of the budget, right?
Correct.
So rather than taking this as chunks of the whole 4 in August or July, you said July or?
August.
Can we break this down so that we have another month? Let's discuss 2 of them one month and 2 of them another month.
Okay.
So that it's a little bit broken and apart and more understandable, I think. For me, at least, I think it would be.
Well, are you looking at the positions operationally or financially?
Financially.
I think my view is looking at a 5-year plan, or if we want to even move this out to 7 years, that gives us adequate time to get firm definition and view how we can be funding those positions. So right now, funding is, that's tight.
Yeah.
And honestly, what I'm asking for is the measurables, is to be able to go ahead and, what I thought of doing is basically get this approved as far as the job function of what that job description would be. It would be looking at what a pay study would look like. And I've talked to HR, they feel they can do the pay study fairly quickly. You could understand that, so you have a better dollar amount. I didn't want to go do any of that information without having your consent and approval to move forward with that. And then we would also have a job description for open enrollment. And at that point, I thought putting it back into a binder and putting it back on the shelf, so when the time comes, or if there ever is a time underneath my time, that we could pull that off the shelf and it would be ready to go with a possible quick update. So that was kind of my thoughts on how that process should work. But basically getting that overall plan and structure put in place. And this may be something that could be in 5 years, or this could be something that could be 25 years from now. But it's, I believe, a responsible manner of looking at it and kind of looking at how we can project out what the future growth would be for the community.
Okay, thank you.
So are you asking for?
Need a second.
Yep, second.
Okay. Can you repeat the motion, please, so it be?
Okay, I move that we carry over final consideration of the strategic plan to the August meeting.
Okay. Second. Okay. I got a little confused between you and Steve back and forth here, what the actual motion was. Okay, we need a roll call, please.
Pinker,
Yes.
Beek,
Yes.
Schutz,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Yeah, sure, I've got a clarification on one point. Which 2, would you like the positions brought up at July, you'd like 2 positions there and 2 positions talked about at August? Is that what you were thinking, or?
That's what I was thinking.
Okay, is there 2 that you'd like to hear about first?
It doesn't matter to me.
Okay, I can do that, we'll plan on that for the next presentation. I'll just pull those 2 slides and then we can talk about it.
Maybe the more pressing and the one that we discussed before was the PIO, so maybe the PIO, community risk reduction, and the fire marshal / inspector.
Okay. Well, I believe the PIO has already been pushed to August to begin with, last meeting.
August or September.
Let's leave that in August and go to September.
September?
September, yeah.
Sounds great, thank you for the clarification.
Still going August.
Okay. Review and approval of fire department policies and procedures. Bill has worked with, I forget the gentleman's name here, sorry. Paul. Yeah, what was it?
I'll take it.
Okay, thank you. With Paul on these policies, and it's huge to have these guys working on this, because this is not easy stuff to read and follow along to, but they're extremely important because they need to be specific. And we're very fortunate to have these two guys working on it as detailed as they are. So I appreciate you guys' work on that. Is there anything you want to present? Bill or Paul or? No. Okay.
I think I answered all of Bill's questions when he went through them, I hope. If he's got any more, I'm
No, I don't
open
have
to
any more.
answering those questions for you.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve these policies, please.
Motion? I'll second it.
Okay. A roll call, please.
Baker?
Yes.
Meek?
Yes.
Schmitz?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes. Okay, fire service and law enforcement news updates.
First two items, Oklahoma City, Oceanside, California. Those in because of drone use. The really unique one, Oceanside, California. A break-in in the strip mall. They lost track of where the suspect was. And somebody said, wait a minute, we've got a movable ceiling, maybe it's up there. They removed tiles, they flew the drone all over the attic area. And there he was. When the drone came by, he panicked and he fell through the ceiling. Now the other one, train conductor said, called 911, we hit something on the tracks, we don't know what it was, could you put the drone up? Put the drone up, found the victim down on an embankment. They were able to use the drone to assess his external injuries. Columbia, South Carolina. This is the first citizens assisting law enforcement in a long time. I saw the films on this one. As usual, the suspect would have been better off if he had complied in the first place. Citizens that interfere or intervene to help police tend to be a little bit more aggressive than the police are. Chief mentioned sprinklers in PCA building. Amazon had a fire in February in one of their New York warehouses. 3.5 million square feet, all fire protected by sprinklers. The sprinkler system suppressed it. They had water damage on 2 floors. They flushed the water out and they went back to business. Chief knows pursuits are not good, they're dangerous. Georgia State Patrol did a study and they found 2023, which was the last year for full data, they were involved in 6,700 pursuits, with most of those being initiated by them. 51% ended in crashes. About 33% people were injured, and for the pursuits, reducing it down for every 102 pursuits, 1 person died.
That's a lot of pursuits.
Yeah.
That's due to hazard stuff there.
I'll skip the other two. Kenosha County, May 22nd, a really large home in a rural area. The folks had a 6-foot diameter drone when they needed that, and they said they were charging it. Everybody left the house while this was charging. Neighbors noticed a fire. They required, this is a rural area, they required tanker shuttles to transport 100,000 gallons of water to fight the fire, with the amount of that. The Crossfire Department, this was the day after, they responded to a structure fire. They call it taxpayer, commercial on the ground floor, apartment on the second floor. And as the chief noted, the hazard of 1 stairway, typical building, an apartment upstairs, 1 stairway. The stairway was blocked by a burning electric scooter. Brief history of San Francisco Fire Department and their ambulance service. I think the really neat thing here is they were the first in the nation to have a police radio receiver in their ambulances. They couldn't talk, they could listen. And they installed two-way radios in 1950. And they didn't charge a fee until 1979. You can recall the tornadoes that went through the St. Louis area. They had a problem. Sirens didn't go off. You've got two sheets, or one sheet about this. I apologize for the way this printed out. This is what was sent to me. It gives a brief rundown. However, I was able to get some other information about what happened. This is printed on both sides. In the incident, the entire emergency management staff during a severe weather warning was out of their offices. I heard the call between their emergency management director and the fire department, which was supposed to be the alternate site for setting them off, the sirens off. And that was made public. And the emergency management director never said, turn the sirens on. Her statement was, you've got the sirens. Yes, ma'am, we've got the sirens. And that was it. This would have been several days after this happened. The policy was changed. The outdoor warning system is to be activated at the primary activation point, the fire alarm office at the St. Louis Fire Department headquarters. And the fire department is now in charge of operating the sirens. The last thing that I've got, you recall in Seattle, there was an attack on a religious activity. And this is the statement from the Seattle Police Department. Interesting statement. And with that, I am done. You should also have in your packet information about the U.S. Justice Department dismissing the civil rights consent decree, including Minneapolis, through those who wish. I will not have any updates in July. I'll go back to updates in August.
Thanks, Bill.
I'm a little big on that, Bill. If I didn't have less, I wouldn't read it all.
I am sorry, that would not enlarge any more than I got.
Nothing on that whole page, if you're gonna leave it out.
These were really hard to print on.
Yeah, I know.
Any items for future meetings? Then I can say that we are adjourned.